Let's turn it round. Here we are, the gate to my allotment in South Somerset. It's a very muggy day today, and I thought it was the perfect day to show you round my plot. So I took this plot on 4 years ago in July 2021, and it was just a piece of grass. That's all it was. There was nothing here at all, completely virgin plot. I had the option of taking on an established plot, and I decided to go from scratch, and I would recommend that because the soil hasn't been messed up and you haven't got to undo anyone else's mistakes. You can start from scratch. And I started off by covering the whole place with, and it's a full-size allotment, covering the whole allotment with a big membrane, thinking I'll leave it for a year and see what happens and then start work in a year's time. Well, that didn't happen because I'm an impatient person, and so I started to roll back the membrane and dig the beds. So I'm going to take you on a little tour. So these are my fruit trees. The plums aren't doing very much, but the apples are looking very bountiful. This tree is 3 years old and it's got the best crop of apples I've ever had. Beans are coming up in the wigwam here. The courgettes are a bit disappointing. I think they just need a bit more moisture really, because we just haven't had the rain. But I've also got the pear tree. And then growing in this bed here are potatoes and more courgettes. Again, they're not doing particularly well. And I've edged these beds with old roof tiles. And one of the lovely things about allotmenting is you just basically forage stuff. If somebody's chucking something out, you ask them if you can have it. You can rummage in skips, obviously ask permission first, and there's all sorts of things you can find. Now, this was the first bed I ever dug over here, and as you can see, it's covered with a black membrane. That's because I've just taken out my first early potatoes. And a little tip, if you're new to allotmenting, you cannot beat, once you've used the soil, actually digging. Well, you don't even need to dig it over, just get some membrane and stick it on top and just leave it. And it's a brilliant weed suppressant. It keeps the soil warm over the winter, and it means that in the spring when you want to replant things, you can just peel the membrane back, and with a little bit of digging, unless you're doing no dig, and I'm not into no dig, but if you are doing no dig, you're good to go. It's great. In my next one here, I've got the ubiquitous gladioli. I'm a huge fan of those as well. They always look really lovely on allotments. I'm going to pick some of those in a minute for the house. I've also got some cabbages. I haven't grown cabbages on the allotment before because I've always had issues with birds and insects, and particularly the dreaded cabbage white. And my advice again is, if you're growing vegetables on the allotment, you've just really got to cover everything up, because the birds will just eat their way through lots. Nice to have a mixture as well of flowers and vegetables. So I've got it looks like a pumpkin. I can't work out whether it could be a pumpkin, it could be a courgette, but it's got rather large. That's because I've been on holiday. And then I've got this little archway here, which is actually quite tall. And I've got borlotti beans growing here. Let's just do a quick close-up of those. Again, I've never grown borlotti beans before, so I'm really intrigued by those. I've eaten them out of a can. They're lovely, but I thought it'd be nice to grow my own. Got some beetroot in here. My husband's already tried some of the beetroot. He loves beetroot. I hate it, but I love growing it. One of them's bolting a little bit because it's been so dry, but they're ready to go now, and the carrots are as well. And then I've got the red onions in here. I've constructed raised beds because that just makes the soil for certain crops a little bit more tilthy and easy to manage than digging into the soil beneath that. And I've tried to put in a mixture of different pathways. So I've got wood chipping here. I had some old tiles that I brought up. I've lugged tons of stuff up here over the course of the last 3 years. Difficult to know what's going on in here because it's all poppy, but there are some cabbages, and somewhere there are some carrots as well. And then I'm going to just step over into the next path, and these are the pumpkins. I've never grown pumpkins. I thought I've got room up here. And it's nice when you've got an allotment because you've actually got room to grow the big stuff. And I've got the cabbages. Now the cabbages are uncovered. I uncovered them the other day actually, thinking, well, we'll see what happens. But I'm not holding out a lot of hope. If they look as though they're going to get attacked, I may well cover them up again. And here's another pumpkin here. And then I've also got some flowers. I think it's really important on an allotment to have pollinators and to encourage all the insects to come in and basically pollinate, fertilise things. There's a little rill down here. I'll just show you that one. It's looking a bit manky because it's full of cut grass. I need to tidy that up a little bit, really. These are Rebecca. I bought 2 very small plants up from the garden last year, and they are thugs. They've gone absolutely crazy, but they do look good, and the bees love them. And then over here is the fruit. So I've got autumn strawberries. The lovely thing about autumn strawberries is that you cut them right back in January, right to the ground. You don't have to do anything other than that, really. So they're starting to ripen. I can see 1 or 2 reddish ones coming now. Gooseberries are in there somewhere. My advice on gooseberries is make sure you always cover them up with netting, because I've lost mine now 2 years running, which is a real palaver. I've cut the strawberries back, but I've had an amazing strawberry harvest this year. I reckon I've harvested about 10 kilos of strawberries altogether. It's been absolutely incredible. And over here, again, I've taken out the broad beans, covered that up, just so that I don't have to worry about weeding. This is my nature, wildlife, natural garden. Again, it's had loads and loads of the lovely daisies in, which have gone over and gone brown and seeded. And so they are now cut back. So it's looking a bit denuded, but it was looking quite verdant and lush. And that's my nature pond. I have seen a newt or 2 in there. It needs topping up, actually. This dry weather is just terrible for ponds. It really is. And then just taking you over this way, the rhubarbs again looking a little bit manky. Another raised bed I put in. I put the raised beds in late last year. It's nice to come up here and work in the winter and not worry about plants, just worry about the sort of infrastructure. And leeks, of course, love tilthy soil. So those leeks were given to me by a fellow allotmenteer, which is lovely. The cabbages, yeah, I can see they're looking a little bit hammered there now. Oh, yeah, there are some serious eggs there. Just take that one off. It's going to be organic control. Nice little tub there. Tire. Some more fruit trees. It looks like I haven't done any watering, but believe you me, I have done nothing but water. But it's been very dry. The soil on this plot is quite heavy. And then over here, this is my kind of work area. So I've got my wheelbarrow, which is really useful for ferrying stuff up and down. You can bring your car up to these plots, but I just don't because it's a bit steep. This is my dung bay, so I've got some nice dung in here. And then I've got loads of water butts. I've got about 6 altogether, but I have to fill them up from a pump, which is quite hard. And then I've got these very nice compost bins, which I actually bought. I treated myself to these earlier because they are really nice. You can sort of unpack them quite easily. Membrane kept in there. And then I've got this area here. I've got netting in that container over there. And then in these bags, it's basically wood chip to redo paths and a bit of compost as well. And I've got various buckets and watering cans and things around. And then an old table that I salvaged from home. It's falling apart, but you can sit at it and it's nice to have the option. And then over here, it's just gone a little bit crazy with nasturtiums and some old lavender and cosmos. And then I've got all my butts as well, which when we get lots of rain, they do fill up quite nicely. But we've had a very, very dry spring and summer so far. And then this is my shed, and I'm very proud of this shed. This is Beck's Allotment. There it is, look. Now, I'm not going to show you inside my shed because it's just the usual stuff, but it's there. It's nice in there. It's a good shed. And then round the side here, I've got a few little, again, a little storage area with pots and long-handled tools and things. So it's not looking its best at this time of year, but it's established. And my advice with allotments is quite simple, really. Let's go and sit on the bench over here and I will give you some pearls of wisdom about my plot and what to do and what not to do. And what's lovely is you've got a great community here. Look, some lovely person, we've got a Facebook group, and some lovely person has left me, bless them, some courgettes, which is lovely because mine were a disaster this year. So let's turn round. Here I am. And let me give you a few pearls of wisdom on allotments. So the first thing is, it's an evolution. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Some people like to get the plot organised from scratch in about 5 minutes, dig all the beds, put the fencing up, get the shed in. You can do that if you want to, but when it comes to growing plants, it's best really just to think slow, work out what works, I think is really important, and take your time. And even if necessary, use just half the plot in the first couple of years, which is something I did. My second tip is to talk to people, because there's a wealth of experience and knowledge on every allotment in this country. There are people on these plots who are in their early 20s, who are just starting out and they're learning. Some of them are quite knowledgeable already. There are people in their 80s who've been doing this for years. And just having a chat with them, it's amazing what people will do. They'll help you do things, they'll give you advice, they'll lend you tools, they'll, all sorts of things. I was lucky being away on holiday recently. My plot neighbour behind me came in and did some watering. Otherwise things would have died. So talking to people, building those relationships is important. I think my third piece of advice is just expect disappointment. There are some things that are going to do really well on the plot, and there are other things which are not going to do so well. So you just need to roll with the punches really, and expect some disappointment, but also expect some success as well. And my fourth piece of advice is, it's a work in progress. You never finish an allotment. And if you don't like something, just change it. So you might have something set up for a couple of years, like a seating area, or a couple of years ago I sorted my compost area out. It doesn't matter if you sort something out and then you decide you don't like it and you change your mind. It's not set in tablets of stone. And my final piece of advice is, little and often is probably better than blitzing when it comes to allotments. So actually, if you can spare half to 3/4 of an hour every day, maybe in the evenings after work, maybe a couple of hours at the weekends, you're constantly on top of it. Maybe a bit of deadheading, a bit of watering, a bit of harvesting, and it's great therapy as well. So having an allotment is hard work. It's not a walk in the park. It's physically demanding. It's quite stressful sometimes. Sometimes you can feel a little bit of a slave, but it is an amazing hobby, and I would thoroughly recommend it. And I'm just going to pan around now and give you one last look at my little plot in South Somerset. Which I'm very proud of. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe to Pink Octopus Productions. We're fairly new, we're just starting out. We've got lots of travel videos and hopefully lots of allotment ones as well. Thanks for watching.